Okay, so let's get into this video. Who is Chris Chan? There is a long, unadulterated history of Chris Chan. They are a trans woman. They cited the reason that they're trans is because they wanted to get women. So take that as they will. There's a lot of history and background, but the most recent event that's happened with Chris Chan, I'm gonna need a lot of therapy for this. Because I'm already starting to cry inside. Okay, so Chris Chan has recently been exposed. The reason why I'm stammering and stuttering a lot is because the contents of this video is going to be dark. So you can hear my voice. I'm extremely nervous because I'm actually rocking backwards and forwards. So yes, I will be stumbling over words. I'll be using words that maybe are not part. So you have to bear with me. Basically, Chris Chan was recently exposed in a video conversation that was posted by a girl who is, or was, or maybe they presumed that they were friends. She basically admits, or not even admits, just declares the fact that she has violated her own mother when the mother is 79 years old and has dementia. If you don't know anything about dementia, I actually have a whole video on dementia, and more recently I uploaded a video on inheritance hunters, which are younger people who target those with neurological conditions who are older, for example Alzheimer's and dementia patients, to convince them to marry them. So when the person dies, they get all of their inheritance, but oops, they have dementia and Alzheimer's, they can't actually consent to anything, marriage especially. So yeah, that's what an inheritance hunter is. So normally in most cases, when you would find a person who would target somebody who has these neurological conditions, it's mostly because a person wants to gain inheritance from them, or it is an individual within a care home who is doing them. That's what tends to happen with these types of crimes. People with dementia cannot consent. They basically, if we can all collectively agree that 10-year-olds can't consent, and we understand why, because a lot of people get confused with Alzheimer's and dementia, we all understand that a 10-year-old does not have the capacity to consent. Putting that into perspective, a lot of people with Alzheimer's and dementia, depending on the stage of it, have the same abilities and capacities as a 10-year-old. So just to put that into perspective, because a lot of people get very confused. Hang on, but they're grown adults. How can they not consent? We can all agree 10-year-olds can't consent. What about somebody who has the capacity of a 10-year-old? That is the problem herein. This is a vulnerable human being, and it's also important to note that Alzheimer's and dementia is the brain degenerating. They are terminal illnesses, meaning the person who has them will die with them. Let's move on to the woman who recorded the call and posted it of Chris Chan, admitting to what she did to her mother, which was non-consensual adult activity, because I can't say the R word. Yeah. So this person, I didn't actually listen to the full call. I listened to segments that were cut down to get to the nitty-gritty of Chris Chan actually admitting to this. There was a red flag with me when listening to larger cuts of the call, because this wasn't just a person trolling, it was a person encouraging this behavior, it was a person enabling this behavior and normalizing it. Now, Chris Chan's autism it's not an excuse. There is no mental deficiency or illness or disorder on earth that can excuse what was done to this woman, this 79-year-old woman who cannot consent. What is confusing to me is the charges, because Chris Chan has been arrested. I know that the girl who we're going to be talking about is thriving off of the attention. That's why I'm not going to be saying her name at all. You're not going to get anything from me, and the only time I'm ever going to be using your name is if by chance I decide to see if there's a way that I could forward information to relevant authorities. Let's move on to the person who actually made the phone call with Christian, where Christian talked about the things that she had done to his mother, her mother. Again, very nervous. You're not going to get the right pronouns out of me today. I'm sorry. If that offends you, I can't help it. I'm sorry. I'm nervous. Because the person who did this, whose name, I will call them B, because I don't want to, they are thriving off of this attention. They are absolutely loving the fact that they're getting attention for exposing Christian. They love it. They get off on it. There is no concern for the lady who was affected, which is Christian's mother. There is no concern for her. In fact, it goes a bit darker than that. It was suggested by this girl while talking to Christian that she film the activity between Christian and Christian's mother. So this person wasn't just being a troll and being like, oh yeah, I'm going to totally catch Christian out. This person was enabling it and supporting it and was encouraging it and was hoping to film it. Something that was going on. This person has done other things, including encouraging another trans person to commit self-deletion, and I believe that person did go through with that. By the way, a lot of this is alleged, although evidently proven. She has posted videos on Discord. Now this is B. So we're talking currently about the girl who recorded Christian on the phone and who exposed the call of what Chris was doing to Chris's mother. She went on Discord and she has, on several occasions, gleefully admitted to being hamsters, including boiling at least one hamster alive, and has said that in one of the screenshots that she currently has an 8th hamster, meaning that she is already 7. Animals, I think a lot of people, it's a soft spot. Rodents or rodent-like creatures like hamsters don't tend to get a lot of sympathy. And this isn't the only thing she's done. Allegedly, she kept her house so dirty that the legs of a puppy she owned were infected and had to be amputated, and she overfeeds her cat, so it opens bowels over the floor. And the smell apparently turns her on. So she not only is hamsters, she is so neglectful of a puppy that its legs had to be amputated, and she's overfeeding the cat and allowing it to open bowels everywhere, meaning any animal that does live in the house, including the cat, are living in very unhygienic, unhealthy conditions. This is confirmed. There was in fact a screenshot of a video with the hamster boiling in a pot. I'm just going to let you guys take that in for a minute. These are things that, you know, if you go on Tipster's Twitter, he has tweeted out some things about this. There are no pictures of the animals. The pot has a little black square over where the hamster is, so you won't be able to see it. So, but it still is very disgusting because there are screenshots of messages where she talks about wanting to do things to the hamster. You can go to Kiwi Farms. I did try to go to Kiwi Farms, but it was DDoS the last time I checked, last night. So that's why I said go to Tipster. And yeah, do not contact this woman. It will fuel her to do more things. I don't want to know what she could do to a human being. I don't want to know. Because we've seen this road before. We've seen this road with cats. I don't want to know what she could do to a human being. I'm unaware. The only thing we can really do is just make tips and reports. I don't contact her. If you find her social media, don't tag or message her. Don't do anything like that, because what happens in these cases are, if we're disgusted by what happens, they will take any attention from that and continue to do it, meaning only more animals in this case will suffer, more people will be pushed into self-deletion. It's what they do. Honestly, at this point, I the, honestly, I don't believe anyone should misgender trans people just because they don't like them. The problem arises when the misgendering becomes a more prominent conversation than the actual crime. I'm like, I get it. I get it's frustrating. I know I've made many misgenders in this live stream because it's live and I'm not editing it and I'm just speaking from the top of my head, and obviously it's quite a distressing subject. I'm more concerned about the mother with dementia and the animals in this case, but I don't think we should take the idea that this person did something bad, therefore misgender them, because then you could do that for anyone who has a perceived who is, if you perceive they have slighted you in some way, you can do that to them. Anyone who does this, anybody who harms a child or a vulnerable adult or an animal, they aren't human to me anymore. Whether you're male, female, non-binary, boy, girl, demi, I don't care what you are no longer human to me. If I call you an it is not a reflection on your gender, but a reflection on how inhuman I perceive you to be. Fred West, who is a cis man, is an it to me. It is not a reflection on whether or not somebody, it's not a reflection on my views on gender, it's my reflection on how I think you're a monster. For example, when a lot of people got quite upset because I mistakenly misgendered Nan, who was Dissociated's ex-partner. They were non-binary. I said she quite a bit. Honestly, I would refer to them a monster because they were drawing CP of children. So it really doesn't matter to me. Your gender has nothing to do with it. As soon as you commit a crime that impacts children, vulnerable adults, or animals, people who are lesser than you, if you manipulate people, if you drive people to self-deletion, you're an it. You're not human. There is no gender for you anymore because you are something I refuse to see as human. And a lot of people take that as bad because it's like, oh, you're calling a trans woman a thing. And I'm like, no, I'm calling that human being over there who shouldn't be categorized in the same species as me because of what they did a thing. I just wanted to put that out there because a lot of people, yes, it is. Misgendering people on purpose is very bad. I'm not misgendering them. I'm misspeciesing them. I am separating them from myself. As a person who is a Homo sapien, I refuse to believe that we have evolved the same way. It's not a reflection on a person's identity, but a reflection on a person's actions and, quite frankly, the crimes they've committed. Wow, okay. I went on a long rant because I think a lot of people are like somewhere on very major different spectrums when it comes to Christian. Either it's completely ignoring everything Christian has done and just says she goes by she, and like, just because I have had people do that in the past. Like, some people have accidentally misgendered a person who's done a terrible thing in my comments, and they'll get a reply from other people just correcting them. Nothing to do with the crime, nothing to do with the victims, just correcting them. Which is like, okay, but what about the crime though? And on the other hand, people will take this and use it as political ammunition and purposefully misgender trans people because of this. There seems to be no middle ground as to, yes, that person goes by that thing, but maybe we shouldn't just focus on that because things happen. Then we found out later on that the person who recorded this phone call and leaked the phone call, who we will refer to as B, because I don't want to say her name and give her any traction, yeah, she kind of sucks. Like big balls. She offered to film, or she was trying to arrange filming Chris and her mother. There was also a time where apparently she attempted to film Chris with an underage girl. I don't know much about this. It's an allegation I haven't looked into too much, but it's a thing that has occurred. It wouldn't. Like, here's the problem. Grim. It's disgusting. The fact that she has dementia is another layer, because this woman doesn't have the ability to consent. So it's not that I'm saying, oh, if she hadn't had dementia, is fine. It's just another layer of debauchery upon this all. And the B was also in text messages with Chris, basically encouraging him on the phone call. I'd only listened to significant snippets of it where she seemed to be trolling, but as it went on and I listened to more, it sounded like very much encouragement of the act. Like she was encouraging Chris to do this. She was enabling Chris to do that. As dementia progresses, it's fatal. It means that the brain is breaking down neurologically. Nerves endings, they're not working anymore. It's deterioration of a person. Late stage dementia is the worst stage. They're going to have little comprehension of what's going on, little comprehension of where they are, maybe who they are. They might not remember their date of birth. They might not remember your face. So at this point, there's a possibility she could have not known that it was Chris doing this. Hallucinations do occur within dementia. She could hallucinate that perhaps it was her late husband or somebody that in her past, so maybe an old boyfriend. There's a complete chance that she would have had no clue it was her. And the girl who recorded the call, who was egging this on, knew what was going on. B was a pretty sick little pup herself. She egged on a trans person to commit self-deletion. Oh, thank you so much. That's really cute. Yeah, we'll be getting back onto that. But thank you so much for the super chat. I super appreciate it. I've had a blank. So yeah, she's a sick pup herself. She did that, and then talking about puppies, her way of living was so disgusting, never cleaning. Her flat was so filthy that it ended up with a puppy or a dog she had having to have legs amputated because of the infection. I believe it was the infection, but the legs were amputated. Complete and utter neglect for this animal. She also would go on to she allegedly overfed her cat, so the cat would continuously just poop everywhere, which would increase the dirtiness of the house, because apparently the smell turns her on. So there's the puppy, and then there's overfeeding a cat. Something that does actually bother me a lot is when, like, on Twitter you'll see like an overweight animal and they'll be like, "Oh, chunky boy," and I'm like, no, that's really bad for an animal, because humans can sustain quite a bit of weight, obviously, and still, because we're larger animals. But animals like a dog or a cat, they are meant to be wild animals. They're meant to be out there. Well, not meant to be wild animals, but like their ancestors and animals they're related to are like very active. Like look at lions, look at tigers of the cat family. They're all very active, very slender, and they're used to only eating like whenever they can. That's the instinct of an animal. So we should feed these animals like not sparingly. I don't want to starve an animal, but you know what I mean. We shouldn't be like, "Oh, chunky cat," because that can be very detrimental. They're so tiny, these animals, and they will put strain on their heart and their organs. So I don't like that. So if you guys haven't watched Don't F with Cats on Netflix, don't watch it. But basically there was a similar case that kind of rings true for me in this case, because Luca, the guy who was doing things to cats, did it for the attention. He wanted to be famous, and the revelry and enjoyment in some messages where B says that she's famous now. Her trolling was so on top, she's famous. The motivation is the same. It's attention. This is all attention seeking, which is why I won't say her name. But if you do want to search up this human being, don't interact with her. Don't try and find socials. Don't try and at her angrily. This is fuel for people like them. It was for Luca when he went on to, unfortunately, murder a human being for fame, for attention. And the escalation, yep, was the reason in which it went so far. So that's why a lot of people might think, oh, that's a reach. The patterns and the motivations are similar. I think this is again also kind of why I have a problem with pet stores. It is so easy for anybody to walk into a pet store and just pick up a hamster, for example, and pick up a bunny rabbit or something. And breeders are things, sure. I don't know what it's like in the US, but it generally, if you go to a breeder, you can get a dog, but more likely you can go to like a shelter and adopt, but then they'd have to check that you're a suitable fit for the animal. They don't have that with like hamsters and the smaller animals, who arguably are a lot more vulnerable because of their size. And I just wish there was a way in which we could, like, I know it would really, because again, this is for profit. Pet shops are profit. Selling the animal and having to do background checks for every person who came in to get a hamster, it might not be realistic, but I wish there's a way in which we could protect these smaller animals because they really are vulnerable. And I feel like maybe one of the things we could do as people is, rather than going to pet shops, is go to animal shelters. Not a lot of people realise that hamsters, rabbits, gerbils, guinea pigs, all of those types of animals are at shelters. Like in the United Kingdom, the RSPCA does have a section for small animals. They have a section for reptiles and for snakes, for tortoises, for turtles. Rather than going to a pet store and perhaps giving an incentive for the pet store to breed more pets, we could go to shelters and get animals. You know, I want to do that. So I'll see you guys soon. Again, all of my links are in the description or in the about page if you don't get to click on it by the time this goes down. So I will see you guys soon and have a good time and stay safe. Bye, guys.